Hey everyone, how's it going? JD Strategic here. I hope everyone's doing great today, although I have bad news for you guys. If you saw my story on Thursday, the Q2 advanced estimate GDP came out at negative 0.9%. So that is 2 straight quarters of negative GDP. So that means we are in a recession, although if you've seen the recent articles, they're kind of changing the definition of a recession and making arguments that the economy is actually doing good, but we are officially in a recession despite whatever they're saying. So what is that? Let's kind of talk about the history of a recession, what we can expect, and what you guys can do. So the goal is always to kind of be actionable with these videos and help you guys out. So let's kind of get into the history of a recession. So there have been 34 recessions since 1857. So the shortest one was at the start of COVID. That was 2 months from February to April of 2020. That was pretty rare, where the economy really just bounced back extremely strong. We've seen a lot of growth over the last couple of years. And then the longest recession we ever saw lasted a little over 5 years, and that was in 1873 to 1879. But that was the longest recession, and that was 5 years. So like we talked about, if we're investing over that 40-year timetable, 5 years really doesn't mean anything. You know, the longest the S&P took to bounce back once was 10 years. So when you have that 40-year timetable, it really doesn't matter. So that's kind of the point of this video, just to prove to you guys that short term that we can expect a lot of volatility, but over the long term, it really doesn't matter too much. So going back to the recession, so the average recession has lasted 17 months, while 6 since 1980 lasted less than 10 months. So as of recent, there's only been a few, and they've lasted less than 10 months. So the economy has really done really strong in the last couple of years, and that's just a result of us kind of looking back at history and what has occurred and kind of learning from our mistakes in some regards. So we can expect the recession to be sometimes more shorter term compared to over 100 years ago. So that can be a pro. So that's one of the pros to expect. So overall, how does a recession line up with the stock market? So we've talked about a bear market, and we've been in a bear market where we see the stock prices drop 20% from the highs. So since 1928, we have seen 25 bear markets, and out of those, 14 of the 25 have overlapped with the recession. So during those recessions, 14 of those 25, we've expected 20% or less stock price drops. So we can't always expect that. So we really can't predict which way the stock market will go. I'm just coming out with this video 2 days later because I was curious to see how the stock market reacted on Thursday and Friday, and it actually bounced back super strong. We saw the NASDAQ up 4% on Thursday, which is pretty much unheard of. So we're seeing stocks kind of come back at a crazy pace the last couple of days. So this could be the end of the bear market. So it'll be curious to see where things go. But what can we expect now that we're in a recession? Whether people want to say we're in a recession or not, we've seen the economy, the GDP at a negative rate. So what can we expect? We can expect a raise in interest rates. The government wants to cut back the spending, so cutting back interest rates and creating higher taxes is one way to do this. So these are two of the things we can expect. And what the raise in interest rates really means, it means that loans become more expensive. It's harder to borrow things, it's harder to buy things. They want to lower the spending right now to overall create a more healthy economy. Because we've seen such rapid growth, we kind of need to see it slow down a little bit. But overall, that means interest payments, there could be more, and you're going to be spending more on those interest payments. So things are going to be more expensive. So it kind of goes back to some of these trades of savings. So those are super important. But lastly, in this video, let's get into what you guys can do, how to be actionable. So like I was just saying, saving during a recession, these are when like the greatest entrepreneurs are created. These are when the greatest businesses are created. And these are because people like this see times like this as an opportunity. So people have the ability to save cash right now then they have the ability to invest in great opportunities at a discounted price. So if you have the ability to save, this is the great time to do it. And then when an opportunity comes, that's the great opportunity to invest that cash at a discounted price. So that's something that's really important. And then also in terms of your job, whatever you're doing, you need to understand the job market. The history of recession shows that we can expect a lot of layoffs. We've already seen a good amount of layoffs in finance and tech especially. There were crazy growth in tech, so we've seen a lot of slowing of hiring in those industries. So you need to kind of pay attention to your job market and look at, are you providing value to your company? Are you providing value to your firm? Because if you're not, times like this, the businesses need to lower their expenses. They need to lower their costs. And if employees aren't providing value to the firm, then this is the time where unfortunately a lot of people are laid off. So it's really important to look at your job market and see how strong is the job market, and specifically your firm, and are you providing value to them. So that's something that's always really important, kind of providing value to your job, but during a recession especially. So also you need to live below your means right now. These are times when you need to be saving. We have these expectations that the most wealthy people over time are the people with the most expensive watches, the most expensive cars, when in reality a lot of these people are living for the most part paycheck to paycheck. So it is important to just live below your means, and this is really a skill to have throughout your life. And it doesn't mean not spending money on things you want to have, but it just means living below your means. And once you do this for a little bit, it really does become something that's more fun, believe it or not. So kind of challenging yourself to not always spend, but always pay yourself first. So also during a recession, I think it's really important just to ignore the outside buzz. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on, a lot of headlines saying, sell your stocks, sell your house, whatever it may be, but kind of just sticking to the long-term investment plan despite the short-term volatility, and just remembering the history of the stock market and what we can expect over time. So I think that's really important. And another thing right now is we can expect interest rates to change a little bit, so it could be a time to lock in a loan at a shorter-term interest rate. But overall, who knows what will happen there, but that's just something potentially to look out for. And then lastly, just having that emergency fund. During a recession, like I said, a lot of people will be laid off, so I think it's important, we talk about having that 3 to 6 month emergency fund. Time like this, it could be even more important to have even 12 months saved up, whatever it is you're comfortable with, but I would strongly advise saving up a couple additional months in a time like this, just so you have that financial security. We talked about over that 10-year timetable, majority of Americans go through some sort of financial hardship, and during a recession is a time when a lot of people do go through a financial hardship. So having that emergency fund saving up and having that amount so that you're comfortable with in a worst case scenario, because as someone, if you want to have that financial freedom, you need to kind of plan for the worst case scenario. So that's really everything that I want to talk about today. Sorry for the super long video. But I thought it was really important to just talk about the recession, as that GDP came out on Thursday. So we saw in Q1 it was negative 1.6%, then Q2 was negative 0.9%. So there is an argument there that the economy is improving. It went from negative 1.6 to negative 0.9%. But overall, the definition of a recession historically has just been 2 straight quarters of negative GDP growth. Doesn't matter if that's improving. So that is a good sign, though, that the number did get better. Despite it still being negative, the number is getting better. So it'll be curious to see how things play out in the future. But thank you everyone for tuning in. JD Strategic out.